You're listening to Southpod, Rise of a Region, hosted by Stanfield Gray and John Yarian.
We'll do these kind of rapid fire. John, I'm curious, there was a glaring absence in your presentation. I didn't hear any reference to healthcare application. It's like half of our economy. Is that just an oddity of circumstance here and you haven't encountered it, or was it left out for some other reason?
So it's great that you mentioned that. It was somewhat accidental in the sense that I did not feel as experienced in that area to be making recommendations. Most of the work that we've done has been on the marketing or training or enterprise side, less so on the medical side. I will say that there is obviously a lot of interest in that space and a lot of application for that. I was having a conversation earlier tonight about how are we going to use this technology in a way that will get everybody excited to use it, and health and medicine are absolutely a way, whether you look at telemedicine or education, absolutely a way to visualize things that are going on with your body in a way that is perhaps more impactful than just reading something on WebMD. All credit to WebMD, but you know, doctors often talk about the difficulty in people being able to visualize things that are going on with them. This would be an opportunity to do that. So that is happening in a very successful way in pockets, but you're right, that's a notable exception.
Yeah. So one thing I heard,
Glenn,
go ahead.
Sorry, just to
Yeah.
amplify what you said. So, I mean, an extension of that would be education, and you know, particularly just the visualization, and different people learn in different ways. But do you see anybody doing that well, or is that just still too nascent?
So a question from the floor related to the healthcare conversation was about education.
Right.
And we're looking for an explanation on that side.
Sure. This is great. There's only so many use cases that you can fit on any one PowerPoint slide to be delivered in 20 minutes, and I would encourage you to look beyond this for all the different applications. I'm happy to talk about it more. But on the education side, there are some pockets and actually overlap in the healthcare field. Microsoft loves to talk about what Case Western University is doing with some of their medical training, to be able to have anatomical lessons that happen in a stand-up around a virtual cadaver, where individuals can pursue their own pace, but can also be presented to and reveal different systems and explore different aspects of the human body. That's promising. Similarly, at Columbus State University, of all places, there is a professor who is able to relate mathematical concepts about theoretical physics that he can't do on the whiteboard, but can have success doing it in a HoloLens where you have depth and space and distance. So people are seeing success. The reason I hesitate is because for the publishers to get involved beyond just an experiment, there is going to be an enormous investment required in translating a lot of this text-based or 2D photographic illustration-based content into something that can be meaningfully consumed on an immersive device. And I think that, you know, you saw Williams-Sonoma a month ago or so spent $100 million buying Outbound, or whatever they were called, a 3D capture studio, because they were spending more than that trying to capture all their SKUs. So that's just one company. So if you look at the domain of all human knowledge and you have publishers that have a slice of it, that's the elephant sandwich that they're going to have to eat, and that's probably why they're holding back. That said, capture technology is zooming ahead super quick. Devices that cost $50,000 last year, now you can use your iPhone for a lot of cases to kind of capture different aspects of it. It's not going to be right for everybody, but we're seeing, you know, orders of magnitudes of improvement in terms of lower costs and easier workflows to ingest that content, and I think that's what's holding education back.
So, question: if you're an executive at a company and it's your role to bring this technology in and to convince a group of executives to grant you the budget to, we really want to go at this. How do you do it aside from, you know, PowerPoint and
Prototypes.
yeah?
So,
but
Oh, sorry, you want to repeat the question?
Let me-
immersive AR,
Yeah.
VR sell the experience? How do you do that? If you're going to walk 10 people into a room to say, this is fantastic.
So the question from the floor is, how do you champion this for budget, right? How do you justify this and make a case that would get you started that's a little bit better than maybe a quick keynote? How do you dazzle them, I think, is the heart of it.
You know, hopefully one of the benefits of this presentation is that this is real talk between people that are all in, leading businesses. And it's been a struggle of ours because there's tons of interest. But sometimes you can't get meaningful budget chipped away to actually do something that would sell. And again, we're seeing people in the innovation groups, in the marketing groups, have budget they can peel away to do a prototype or a proof of concept. But the way we're attacking it now actually is with workshops that lead to prototypes. Because you have a range of different levels of facility or understanding about these technologies across the organization. And for us, we rent our clients' domains to express our horizontal experience or expertise. And so what is done for a medical devices company will be completely different than what's done for a retail marketer, which will be completely different than what's done for an educator. So we try to do a workshop where there's an education component, and then there's a hands-on component, because everybody thinks they know what they're talking about, but once people try it, usually their opinions change, for better or for worse. People take it off and say, oh, that makes me dizzy, I can't do it. Or, hey, I didn't know you could do this on my iPad. Will this work on mine? Hands-on is key. And then coming out of that, their minds are expanded to the point where you can have a brainstorming session towards use cases. Well, what do you guys struggle with right now? Oh, well, we struggle to help people understand, the stock pickers to understand whether an item is in stock. And they go all the way to the back of the warehouse, and then they find that the item's in short supply, and then they wasted 6 minutes or whatever. If we can do a prototype coming out of a brainstorming session that they can use, the champions can go show the executives, it's like magic. We did a project for Porsche. It was a small HoloLens prototype. It got everybody's attention, and rightfully so. They said, you know what? The graphical horsepower is not there. The device is too delicate. People aren't going to figure out how to use this, but it's an interesting way to change the sales console. And also they felt like, graphically it wasn't there. So when Apple came out with AR Kit, they said, that's unlocked it. And they decided to take their experiment and go wide as a test. And it was so successful, they decided to build a consortium within all of their dealership groups around the country, the world rather. That was what worked for them. We've seen that work that way in other organizations.
We're going to do two more real quick. We'll start to my right. Did you have a question?
Sure. John, would you say something about one of the challenges we see in VR and even in AR is the inability to share in a social context. These are experiences that are done alone. Is that causing you trouble? That's been causing us some trouble.
So I'm going to try to rephrase that competently. So there's a challenge in sharing social context, that these are experiments done in a vacuum.
Right.
Can't wait to hear you do this in 45 seconds.
So we're focusing on AR because the ROI has fewer hops to connect the dots to ROI. We're doing AR because it happens in the real world where people spend most of their time. I'm not saying that we won't do or don't do VR at all, because it can have some very interesting use cases. One in particular is we had a pediatric gastroenterologist in here recently, a research doctor, and he was saying that some children suffer from violent nausea every 6 minutes, and it's called chronic vomiting syndrome. And sleep resets it. And they're interested in using virtual reality as a way of mimicking some of the brain processes during sleep to reset that. So in specific application, VR makes a lot of sense. Now, that's not exactly answering your question. Let me talk about the social aspects of VR. If AR is a tool, like a pair of glasses or a magnifying glass or something, a camera, something on those order, VR I look at more like the movie theater. That's an experience that I want to go have. I want to be immersed. I want to be impacted by it. But you see people trying to fill in the gap in between. Facebook Spaces is a totally underrated platform for immersive content sharing. We're starting to do more and more client meetings. Instead of Skype, we'll do them in Facebook Spaces, where we can bring things in, we can take you different places, you can see avatars that move better and are more engaging than kind of 5 frame a second video. And that's interesting. Similarly, there is a company called immerse.io. Everybody should go and sign up for a demo right now. They will gladly, you can come here in the lab and do a demo if you don't have the hardware in your office. It is 10-player, air quotes, immersive training. And so we went out into the virtual desert and set up a satellite antenna with 9 other people, and we were crawling around on the green mat here, connecting BNC cables and snapping clamps, and there was feedback, and it was amazing. And it was all in VR, but we were doing it together. They were in London, we were here, we had some people elsewhere. So in the right application, and that's super cursory, there's way more people trying to solve social VR. We see it working well in the right conditions.
Last one.
Oh, shit.
Rated R! No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
I was gonna say, like, using the Williams-Sonoma example, is this, like, is there a business case ROI, like, case study? Is it, you know, if we're out here trying to do things and pitch this to clients or implement this in our own companies, Williams-Sonoma spent $100 million, are they making way more money than Pottery Barn? Or is it just something that kind of has to eventually take over and be inevitable? Or where are we in that continuum?
So the question from the floor is seeking, I think, a use case or a simpler model that would lend predictability towards either implementation or sale to a client
Like,
that's
for
not...
the company who's using it, is there like a financial case study? Like where they implemented this and they made
Right.
like
Is there a financial case study that
Right.
would show us after the fact,
Yeah.
they did this, they made money off of it?
It's a great question. I think history, of course, will prove Williams-Sonoma as being shrewd or being foolish. They believe, probably for similar reasons to why we believe, that the future is going to consist of digital objects that are in 3D. And so there was an urgent or acute problem that they were having where they were spending too much money on production resources that they didn't own, and they saw that they were going to continue to have more SKUs that they needed to capture because styles change. So there was a monetary reason why they did it, and that's a case study in and of itself, that was so important to them that they had to make a change, they had to buy a company. Now, I'm not in the business of thinking all the ways that this wouldn't happen, but let's say, for instance, people said, no thanks on the 3D stuff, we're fine with what we have right now for the next 25 years. That would prove, of course, to be a foolish investment. So our take on it is the capture technology is expensive now, it won't be expensive forever. People are going to want to do things for a variety of reasons in 3D. Purdue University 2 days ago released an experiment that they did that cut the bandwidth necessity of applications like Skype or FaceTime by 1,600 times. Not 1,600%, but 1,600 times. And the way they did it was they used the depth sensing camera on the iPhone 10 to create a virtual puppet, like an Animoji of your face. And at that point, they're just looking at the changes in your face and they're puppeting the picture that they took of you, instead of sending full frame video over whatever quality that your connection will support. And so we're going to see Moore's Law or kind of orders of magnitude more than Moore's Law on software as people come to understand these needs more. They understand the 3D world. Roomba famously or infamously was considering selling all the internal virtual positioning data that they have from people's homes. Google is amassing their own data. There's an inevitability to this, and I think there is a rapid crash in the price and complexity of these technologies that's going to mean, today's happening in the lab. 2 years from now, every realtor is going to have a 3D model on their business card of the house that they're trying to sell that they can show you, or they can send to you. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
One more time, let's hear it for You Are Here CEO John Buzzell.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Southpod, Rise of a Region, where innovators dish on success, failure, and a rapidly evolving South.